Welcome to Art City Now. This week I've got something kind of different than normal. Usually I look at one work and I talk about it, but I'm passing through a town in Michigan, a city called Kalamazoo, and I saw a few things that maybe weren't even intended as artistic works, but that looked interesting to me. So I thought, why don't I just walk around downtown and point out a couple of different things that caught my eye. So here we go. Okay, so this is the first thing. And it's really strange because I don't know what it is. I believe that it's part of this this building here, the Kalamazoo Public Library, which I don't really care for this. It doesn't work for me. And I'm not trying to be judgmental. For some reason, it's just kind of strange. It looks like kind of a weird silo with, I don't know, maybe if I looked at it more, it'd grow to like me. And I think it's attached to this. But what is this? Now, if you watched last week's episode, clearly I'm in the mindset of monoliths, but this looks like another monolith, doesn't it? Look at this weird building from top to bottom. It's like kind of on the side, and I hope that it's coming in well because the sun is pointing at us here, so it's not going to be the best light. But what a bizarre building. What if this was a building on its own? And this is beautiful. I don't know what that is at the top, if that's an office, but can you imagine if this was a standalone? It looks like an alien structure. And I've probably seen this many times in my life before passing through this city, but I've never noticed it before. It looks like it's windows at the top and there's tile on the side. It's really striking. And I wonder if it's part of this building over here, this public library. This right here should have been the focus. This is what looks like almost like an afterthought. And I don't know if it exists on the other side, but it should. It should be like on its own, I think. But it's almost eerie. There's no windows. There's no sense that anything is going on in there. But there must be. Pretty interesting. All right, this is a welded aluminum sculpture by Gerald, jacquard, The Passing of Colored Volume, 1968. I love monochromatic things. I love the setting here. You've got these skylights, which are interesting, and it's in a raised bed of green, which I think really makes that red pop. Now, one of the interesting things to me about the sculpture is that I like the shape of it, but I also like, as you sort of walk around it, the negative spaces. Watch the negative spaces, like, this right here. I know you know what negative spaces is, but I just wanted to put my finger into the show. But watch as they change shape and move. I mean, look at whatever you want, but it's kind of an interesting thing to do with sculpture, I think, is to watch how the negative spaces change. And, you can do it all the way around, of course. I really, really like monochromatic. I really, really like red. Red is very powerful. Some people, I did a light sculpture in this city last year, and it was just a light installation. It was red, and nobody liked it because it was red. They felt tense, but that's all right. This is really a beautiful sculpture, and they did a really good job of setting the backdrop of it with these skylights, because you get a lot of natural light in here because of these two huge skylights. And of course the shrubbery is beautiful. It's a gorgeous work. So the negative space thing I picked up. I was in Vancouver, British Columbia, looking at a Matisse exhibit at their museum, and it was kind of like just a bronze sculpture of a woman laying on her side, and she had like her arm kind of out to the side like this, and with her hand on her hip or something. And I did like a tour with the curator, and he did that thing where he was like, walk around this and notice the negative space. And I can't remember exactly what he said about that particular piece, but it sort of opened up this idea of inversion for me, like sort of if you look at a quilt and you try to think, well, which one is the background, which one is the foreground, almost like those unfocus your eyeball things that you try to see things in. They're like psychedelic geometric shapes, and you have to unfocus your eyes and see, and it looks like nothing, but then you see a ship, that kind of thing. That's where I got it from. And when I walked by this, that's one of the first things that stuck out to me. The interesting thing about this too is the balance. You have like 1, 2, 3 almost like support pieces in this work. 1, 2, 3 in the back corner. Well, I guess that's not really a support piece, is it? It's 2, but it sort of gives you the impression that it's a third one in a way. What do you do if you're an aluminum sculptor, or you've got a big piece of bronze, which I imagine this stuff isn't cheap to work with? What do you do if you get the shape and it's not quite right? Do you have to start over? Do you have to start the whole thing over? Man, talk about working in a difficult medium. I guess you just kind of have to know what you're doing. There are some things that I have control of medium-wise. If I'm working with something and I just know something's going to work, I guess you just got to have that confidence to go for it. Brilliant. Back to a little more architecture here. Look at these 2 buildings. They're kind of fantastic. I mean, if you look at this one on the right here, it almost looks like a Rolodex in some ways. It's really interesting. I would guess that's probably a 70s building or an 80s building. That kind of stone. If you are familiar, I'm going to butcher his name, but I think it's Yamasaki in Detroit. He did a lot of architecture on Wayne State University and around Detroit. Similar type of stone, just the repetition, the minimalistic patterns. I'll get a closer look in a second, but then you pan over just to the left here. Beautiful. Look at those jutting out boxes and the way that it's put together. It's like I don't know. It's I almost said Jenga, but it's not. That Jenga doesn't have anything on that. It's super fascinating. And there's no, as far as I can tell, there are no windows really on either building. I'd imagine this one on the right there are some, but the one on the left is literally like an above ground bunker, almost like Inception, where it was underground and it just sort of twisted and flipped up to the left side, or the top side. Okay, so there are definitely windows in there. But it's interesting from that angle, you cannot see, or you cannot tell. You don't get a whole, I wonder if you get less light or more light because of the way this is designed. There are so many, these are huge windows. I guess it's just, I don't know what you would call those. Not shutters, maybe shutters. There's so many of them, but it's very simplistic, the design, with the way it's, the walls with these concrete slabs, these rectangular, long rectangular shapes all over, and then the shutters. Very simplistic, but I think it's very effective. Okay, and as you can see underneath the sort of the entrance to the lobby here, you've got more patterns similar to the ones on the side of the building. Really fantastic. The camera, I think, is making it look cleaner than it is. It's pretty dirty. And I get the impression that it's not very appreciated, maybe. So now we're looking, that's where we started, across the street. And actually, looking up at these tiles, God, it smells like piss in here. Whew, man, strong. It's like the French metro underground. No offense, France. I love you. Paris is a great city. Now that I'm realizing, you see these tiles that are on the side of the building, it's the same building. And I had no idea. Because you can see there's I'm just going to call them shutters, and if you want to tell me I'm an idiot, go ahead. But that stops, and then we get into this building on the, to the side of it, and you've got these jutting out fixtures. It's an amazing building, fantastic. It's almost like they share some elements, but it's almost like, in a way, like a symphony, where you have a movement, like Beethoven's Symphony Numbers 5. That's the first movement. This is the second movement. They're still sharing some similar themes, but they're very different, you know, because of these jutting out fixtures. I mean, this is the distinct characteristic. Man, what a building. I guess if it's the same building, I almost think of it as two, but call it two, call it one, whatever. Fantastic. All right, keeping it short and sweet. That's all I got for you this week. Make sure to follow us everywhere at Art City Now, and click the subscription if you can, please. Like below, the comments, anything, all that stuff goes a really long way. And you can keep up with everything at thisiswhereyouare.com. That's where I have everything. I just kind of rearrange it. It looks beautiful. I've got like everything up there, everything you'd want to know about me and more. Too much information about yours truly at thisiswhereyouare.com. Okay, next week.